If you've noticed your legs feeling weaker climbing stairs, getting out of a chair, or walking up a hill, that's not just getting older. It's a specific, measurable kind of muscle loss. And there's a reason people in Japan, where seniors routinely outwalk Americans decades younger, don't seem to lose it the same way. This isn't about joining a gym or buying equipment. It's about 6 specific movements, the kind built into daily life in parts of Japan, that target the exact muscles that quietly weaken after 60 and quietly cause falls. In the next few minutes, the real reason leg strength disappears after 60, the everyday movement most people stop doing without realizing it, and the 6 exercises, in order, that can rebuild that strength starting this week. The last one is the one almost nobody does, and it might be discussed. But before the exercises, you need to understand why this happens in the first place. There's a name for this: sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss. Research suggests it can accelerate notably after age 60, and the legs are usually hit first and hardest, because they're the muscles we stop fully using once daily life gets easier. Elevators instead of stairs, driving instead of walking, sitting instead of squatting to pick things up. If you felt like your legs just aren't what they used to be, you're not imagining it, and it's not something you have to accept as permanent. It's not a switch that flips at 60, it's a slow drift. A little less stair climbing this year than last, a little more sitting, a little more reaching for the handrail. None of it feels dramatic at the moment. That's exactly why it sneaks past most people. The pattern in places where seniors stay strong into their 80s isn't genetics. It's that ordinary daily movement keeps demanding strength from the legs, instead of letting it go unused. The body is remarkably responsive at any age. It doesn't ask how old you are. It only asks, are you still using this? That's what these 6 exercises rebuild. Let's start with the first one, and with understanding exactly why it works. Here's the part most people get wrong. They think leg weakness is about needing more rest. It's actually close to the opposite. Muscle responds to demand. Take the demand away, and the body, efficient as it is, quietly stops maintaining tissue it isn't using. This is why a 70-year-old who gardens, climbs stairs daily, and walks to the store can often outperform a 55-year-old who's been sedentary for a decade. It's not age, it's demand. The muscle doesn't know your birth year. It only knows what you ask of it this week. Take Hiroshi, 74, from Osaka, a composite of the kind of daily life pattern researchers point to when they study active aging populations. No gym membership, no fitness tracker, nothing that looks like exercise on paper. But his daily walk to the market involves stairs, uneven ground, and the kind of natural squatting and balancing that modern Western daily life has mostly engineered away. The leg strength isn't from a program. It's from never letting the legs go idle in the first place. So the first exercise isn't really an exercise at all. It's reclaiming a movement most people quietly dropped without noticing. Exercise 1, the chair stand. Sit at the front edge of a sturdy chair, feet flat on the floor, slightly wider than hip width apart. Without using your hands, lean forward slightly and stand up fully, then lower back down with control. The lowering part matters as much as the standing. Slowing on the way down is what actually builds strength, because it forces the muscle to work the entire time instead of just at the moment of standing. Start with 5 repetitions. If that feels too difficult without hands at first, that's completely normal. Use your hands lightly for support and aim to remove them gradually over a few weeks. This single movement targets the quadriceps and glutes, the 2 muscle groups most responsible for stair climbing, getting up off the floor, and critically, catching yourself if you start to fall. Exercise 2, the wall sit. Stand with your back flat against a wall. Slowly slide down until your knees are bent. Even a shallow bend, just 20 or 30 degrees, is completely fine to start with, and hold that position. Keep your back pressed against the wall the entire time and breathe normally. Don't hold your breath. This builds the kind of sustained leg endurance that day-to-day balance depends on, not just short bursts of strength. Think about what your legs actually do on a normal day. They don't just need to stand up once. They need to hold you upright while you wait in line, while you cook dinner, while you stand at the sink doing dishes. That's endurance, not just strength, and it's trained differently. Start by holding for 10 to 20 seconds. As that becomes manageable, you can slowly increase the hold time or deepen the bend slightly. But there's no rush here. Consistency matters far more than intensity. Now that you've got the 2 foundational movements, the next question is, what's the one daily habit that more than any single exercise predicts whether someone keeps their leg strength into their 80s? Because there's a specific everyday motion almost nobody does anymore, and it's not walking. It's the deep squat. Not a gym squat with a barbell, a full, Ankle-to-floor squat, the kind used for centuries in cultures where people sit on the floor, garden close to the ground, and historically used floor-level toilets. Research on hip and ankle mobility consistently points to this movement as one of the first things lost when it isn't practiced regularly, and one of the most protective when it is, because it trains the hips, knees, and ankles together, exactly the joints involved in a fall. Think about that for a second. Most exercise programs train muscles in isolation. One machine for the quads, another for the hamstrings. But a fall doesn't happen in isolation. A fall happens when your hip, knee, and ankle all need to coordinate instantly to catch your balance. That's exactly what the deep squat trains, and exactly why it's been quietly disappearing from daily life in the West for the better part of a century. Exercise 3. The supported deep squat hold. Onto a sturdy countertop, a heavy table, or the back of a stable chair. Something that won't tip or slide. Lower yourself as far as is comfortable, keeping your chest up and your heels on the ground if at all possible. Even a few inches of movement counts on day 1. Hold for 2 to 3 seconds at the bottom, then rise back up slowly. This isn't about depth on day 1, and it isn't a competition. It's about restoring a range of motion the body has slowly forgotten it's allowed to have. Some people find their heels lift off the ground immediately. That's common, and it usually means the ankles have lost mobility from years of sitting in chairs. That's exactly what this movement is designed to address. Gradually, over weeks. Exercise 4. The standing calf raise. Holding onto a counter for balance, rise up slowly onto your toes as high as is comfortable. Pause briefly at the top, then lower back down slowly. Again, controlling the descent rather than just dropping. Calf strength is often completely overlooked in conversations about leg strength, but it's directly tied to balance and to the push-off power needed for walking, climbing stairs, and stopping yourself from stumbling forward. The calves are also one of the first muscle groups to weaken with inactivity, simply because so much of modern daily life, driving, sitting at desks, low-impact flat ground walking, barely engages them at all. Aim for 8 to 10 repetitions. If balance is a concern, make sure you're holding on to something sturdy the entire time. This is not the exercise to attempt freestanding, especially early on. If you're still with me, this next part matters more than anything covered so far. Most people stop watching here. But the next 2 exercises are the ones that actually transfer strength into real-world stability, the kind that prevents falls, not just builds muscle for its own sake. Here's what almost nobody talks about. Strength alone doesn't prevent falls. You can have genuinely strong legs from chair stands and wall sits and still fall, because falls usually happen in single-leg moments. Stepping off a curb, turning quickly to answer someone, catching your balance when you step on uneven ground or a loose rug. In all of those moments, you're not standing on 2 feet. You're balancing, even if just for a split second, on 1. That's why the last 2 exercises matter most of all. Exercise 5. The single leg stand hold. A counter or sturdy chair for support. Lift 1 foot slightly off the ground. Just an inch or 2 is enough. And hold that position for 10 to 15 seconds. Then switch to the other leg. This trains the small, stabilizing muscles around the hip and ankle that bear the entire load every single time you take a step. And these muscles tend to weaken faster than the bigger leg muscles, simply because they're almost never trained directly in everyday activity or in most standard exercise routines. You can have strong quadriceps and still have weak stabilizers. This exercise closes that gap. As your balance improves over the coming weeks, you can challenge yourself by lightening your grip on the support, or eventually using just a fingertip for balance rather than a full hold. But only progress at the pace that feels safe. Exercise 6. The step up. Using a low, sturdy step or the bottom stair of a staircase, step up fully with one leg, bringing the other foot up to meet it on the step, then carefully step back down. Alternate which leg leads. This is the one almost nobody does on purpose because it mimics exactly what real stairs demand in daily life, combining strength, balance, and coordination in a single fluid motion, rather than training each piece separately the way the other 5 exercises do. If you have a stair rail nearby, use it, especially when you're first starting out. Take Keiko 81, a composite drawn from the kind of pattern researchers describe in seniors who stay mobile well into advanced age. Daily stair use built naturally into ordinary errands, never deliberately exercising in the way we usually picture it, and never losing the ability to climb a flight of stairs unassisted, because the movement was simply never removed from her daily life in the first place. The takeaway isn't that she trained harder than anyone else. It's that she never stopped demanding this particular movement from her body, year after year. That's the real lesson behind all 6 exercises. It's not about one dramatic workout or doing everything perfectly. It's about not letting the body quietly decide, day by day, that these movements are no longer needed. Here's exactly what I want you to do this week. First, pick just 3 of these 6 to start. Chair stands, single leg stands, and step-ups are the highest impact place to begin, since they most closely mimic real-world movements like sitting, standing, and using stairs. You don't need to do all 6 on day 1. Second, use support every single time, especially at first. A counter, a sturdy chair, a stair rail. None of that is a sign you're doing it wrong. It's what makes it safe to keep showing up consistently, which matters far more than pushing too hard, too soon, and getting discouraged or hurt. Third, talk to your doctor before starting any new movement routine, especially if you have joint issues, a recent surgery, balance concerns, or a history of falls. This is general information, not medical advice, and what's appropriate for you specifically can vary quite a bit from person to person. Fourth, track just one thing. Whether getting up from a chair or climbing your own stairs feels noticeably easier after 2 weeks of consistent practice. That's the real-world signal that something is actually working. Not how many reps you did, not how it looks, just whether daily life feels a little easier. 5 minutes every other day is enough to start. You're not training for a competition. You're retraining your body to remember movements it already knows how to do. Your legs carried you for 60+ years without you ever having to think about it twice. They don't need a dramatic comeback story, and they don't need you to become someone you're not. They need you to keep asking them, gently and consistently, to do what they were always built to do. Start small this week. Give it 2 full weeks before you judge whether it's working. Real change in how a chair stand or a flight of stairs feels rarely shows up after just 1 or 2 sessions, but it does show up. Next week, I'll cover the one daily habit that protects balance even more than leg strength does on its own. And it's something most people have never even heard mentioned. Take care of your legs, they've earned it.